Hope you are doing well. Sorry for the delay. A little technical pieces, but a little restart on the computer always helps. This is Tom Miller, Director of the NC Charter Accelerator Program and also founder of Leaders Building Leaders Charter School Consulting Company. And I'm so glad this is an important, critical topic for the vitality of your organization. So what you all should have is access to a chat box up in the upper right-hand side. And if you have any messages, questions for me, you will be able to chat. It looks like a little circle there. So go ahead and send me a message and let me know that you are hearing me loud and clear. This call will be recorded, so you will have access and you can either go back to it or share with your colleagues who are not able to be on this call today. All right, so let's get started. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. There's a purpose behind this title, and one of the things that we'll talk about is that over the last 5 years, since I have been more of a statewide charter school operator and consultant, there has been at least one school that has to redo their lottery processes. And that is extremely frustrating if you have to do that. And I can tell you 10 times out of 10 that it has occurred. It's always because of not paying attention to the unintended consequences or not practicing. We will make sure that we talk about all those today. So excellent. We got many folks on the call. So thank you. Go ahead and send me a chat just to let me know you're out there and I'm coming through clearly. So today, our goal, each of you will have a stronger understanding of the public charter schools enrollment process, the open enrollment, lottery procedures, and most importantly, post-lottery procedures. Thank you, Jamie, for letting me know. All right, fantastic. So these will be our four objectives. And, you know, the number one goal is to just have a very stakeholder and community member and staff member friendly connecting opportunity. And that's a few of the things we'll talk about is even if you don't get enough applicants during your open enrollment period, you should have a lottery anyway because it is the first opportunity and true celebration since you got your school approved. So it's a great connecting opportunity, and we'll talk about that more. So let's talk about some key terms, and I will send you the link if you don't have a copy of the charter school law in regards to admissions. We will talk through it, but you should have a copy printed out. Take notes on it. So domicile is one of the key terms, and this is the home in which the parent, natural or legal, treats as their permanent home. And to be eligible for charter school lottery, right, open enrollment, the child, right, must have a family. He or she must be domiciled in North Carolina at the time. So not 6 months down the road, at the time. Siblings is anyone who resides in the same household. Yeah, all this was clarified a few years ago under one of the House bills that came through. I think it might have been 224, but it's any of the following who reside in the same household, so half-siblings, step-siblings, and children residing in a foster home. So it's living under the same roof. And you can go down many rabbit holes just trying to figure out these two. Right? So clarity is really important. Clarity is really important. So if you look at the law, it specifically talks about enrollment priorities, what priorities that you may give, right? There's only one that you shall give, but let's talk about the may gives. And most of these priorities that we'll talk about don't even impact you until your second year in operation. But let's just talk through a few. Legacy siblings, right? So this is when a child has completed the highest grade and were enrolled for the last 4 years or maximum that the charter school offered. i.e. a middle school. So this is legacy. So this is, for example, let's say that there's a large gap in between two siblings, and it's a school that's grades K through 5. And there's a 7-year gap. If the older sibling spent the last 4 years of that school, so grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the year after they graduate, the younger sibling applies, you could have a legacy preference. Right? You could allow them the same preferences that they would have had if their older brother or sister were still living there. There's also an opportunity preference. So these are students that have been enrolled in the last 2 years who left to participate in an academic study abroad program or competitive admission residential program or vocational opportunity. This gets really, really tricky and needs a lot of clarity. And thanks to STARS, you don't have to worry about it right now. But you're going to have people talking about these, so it's important that you understand them and have at least a broad understanding of what this may look like. So this could be, I know exactly when this came about, this could be that a child has an opportunity to study abroad for a year, but the charter school that they're in is one of those really high-quality schools that has massive waiting lists, and once you leave, it's like impossible to get back in. So a lot of students in lawmakers' eyes were being punished for their opportunity, right? So that's termed the opportunity preference. So now a child can leave for a year or two and participate in some other academic, vocational, or occupational program and have the opportunity to reapply back into the lottery under one of these preferences. In all, I'm looking at the law right now. There's actually 6 preferences. There's 6 total preferences. So as you, as charter school operators, continue to strengthen your processes, you're going to have to figure out which 6 of these will we adopt into policy and which order will they all be in, right? Who has preference? Regular siblings, legacy siblings, opportunity preferences. We also have enrollment priorities for children of full-time employees. This law used to say teachers and teacher assistants and the principal, and they changed it to full-time employees. This really impacted a lot of people because a lot of schools had part-time employees who were maybe teaching Chinese, other foreign languages, high school classes that no longer had preference for their children. So it was a big impact. So again, this is still in May, so enrollment priority could be either the children of full-time employees and the children of board members. Max is supposed to be 15% of your total enrollment. I have a lot of questions about this because I question whether or not how long does that 15% last. Is it 15% for that particular year? Is it 50% for the lifetime of the school? Because, if you have a small school and you have a lot of teachers who have children, this could certainly impact the school. So it's definitely something to hash out locally with your own legal counsel and what that looks like. So again, just looking at the local preferences, and there's the provision in the law, and I will send it to you. It's actually linked in this presentation. 115C238.29F. So it's important that you guys determine the preference order, right? It's a local decision. So what has priorities? Because now we actually have a weighted lottery as well. There's a weighted lottery opportunity that some of you may have applied for. And that weighted lottery could be based upon economic situations for the family, right? So who gets first preference? Is it employees' kids? Is it board members' kids? Is it your weighted lottery? Right? Down the road in year 2, because you don't have siblings in year 1. But down the road in year 2, who has first preference? Siblings, weighted lottery students. So these are just a lot of things that you have to hash out locally and really, really think through. And I'm happy to be your thinking partner on some of those as you guys get deeper into it, just to help you weed through all of the differences. It's important to remember in year one, the only preferences that you'll have are the employees, kids, and your board members' children. Okay. But down the road, you're going to you have to think about the opportunity. There's a new one called grade level structure. So this would be if you are a high school, just high school, or maybe you're opening up in 6th grade, and there's another charter school locally that's maybe K-5. So because their school doesn't enroll past 5th grade, there's a new provision in the law that lets you have a binding agreement with that charter school to give a preference to the children of that charter school to come to your charter school. It can get really, really muddy the more preferences you allow. So just stay clear, stay mission and value-based throughout your admissions policy. Here's that actual link to the law. Let's see if it comes up here. Yep. So you'll see it says you're coming through. As you're coming through, and I send you this link, you'll be able, the section you want to focus on is right down here. Okay, this is your whole admissions requirements. It'll pop right up. And here's all your preferences that we just talked about right here. Okay. If you're a single-sex school, obviously, no preferences there, but it's just your lottery is different. Okay, your lottery is different, so you have some other questions to ask. Your admissions policy should be clearly define the enrollment processes for each applicant. So we've already talked about that their eligibility. They have to be school age. Now, school age is turn 5 by August 31st of that school year. All right, so that's kindergarten. They have to be 5 by August 31st of 2017 to be of public school age. Now, there are some opportunities for early admission for kindergarten students. You, as a school, have to think through: are we going to allow this? Is this something that we will permit the parents to do? And if so, you can find the process in the student attendance accounting manual, which I will leave myself a note to make sure you all get a copy of. It's a great book. You can actually just go to the NC Public Schools website, go into the search box up in the right-hand corner, and just type in student attendance manual. Everybody should have a copy of it. Give me a second so I can write this note down. Okay. So through age 21 actually is public school for students with disabilities. All right, so it's ages 5 through 21 public schools. Charter schools cannot have preschools that are public. Okay, you can certainly have a preschool that is tied to your school, but those students do not have any sort of preferences unless they have the regular preferences that we've already talked about. Your application content can have the basic questions, and you're already probably past this point. If you're not, you better get on it right now to make sure you have your lottery application. All right, so this is your open enrollment lottery application, not to be confused with your enrollment application. These are two different things. They are applying to be part of the lottery. Basic questions: name, date of birth of the student, right? Physical address, emergency contacts, names of the parents, get double phone numbers and double email addresses just in case. All right. Your lottery open enrollment period must be 30 consecutive days. This came about because we had a private school turn public charter a few years ago that had their open enrollment on 2 Saturdays. 2 Saturdays over a 3-week period. Who do you think they were trying to enroll in their school? The general public or the kids who are already in their private school? So, State Board of Education created a policy. Your open enrollment period has to be at least 30 consecutive days. All right. Your admissions policy should also talk about your policies in regarding to accepting applicants. Kids on the wait list, how the wait list will be kept. Okay, those are more procedures, but your admissions policy should have all these pieces to it. Remember, your admissions policy should not show your lottery process. It just should, basically be very broad and say that the school will enroll students through a annual lottery process approved by the school's board. Be very broad. Don't say that it'll always be on the third Saturday of March, because the more strict you are, the more difficult it is to adhere to your own policies. You get yourselves in trouble. Your policy should also talk about people who apply after the open enrollment period. So if my open enrollment period ends on February 28, 2017, that means everybody who applied from, say, if you started January 1st, so January 1st to February 28th, those are my lottery applicants. Now starts another set of applicants coming in, okay, that are not part of the lottery. You should make sure you have a policy and a process to protect yourself there. What questions might you have? Go ahead and throw them in the Dropbox. I know we've talked about a lot of pieces here, top of the wave stuff in regards to your admission policy. We're going to start moving on to lottery processes here in a second, but I want to make sure I've got everybody with me. All right, not seeing any questions. I'm going to move forward. So this open enrollment period, this can begin once the school's already been approved, right? So you guys already have that. Has to be at least 30 consecutive days under policy TCSU 003. The lottery applications should be limited and widely accessible. So limited in the number of questions that it asks and widely accessible into how many different ways can people apply. Hard copy, internet, right? We used to take laptops and put them in local libraries and just, have it set up on the web page so, people could just apply right there if they didn't have access to the internet. You just want to make it as fair as possible to your stakeholders. For record keeping, every application that comes in should be time-stamped and checked for completeness and recorded formally. So if this means it comes in hard copy, however you get it, it should be, time-stamped somehow. So whoever's in charge of your applications being received, they put a timestamp on them and a specific procedure and process for filing these away and recording it. If you're using like a Google form to collect information, that's great because it comes with an automatic timestamp. Timestamps is important because we'll talk about a couple stories in a few minutes. All right, post-enrollment period. So it's a local decision regarding the close date. Okay, so like I said, let's say, for example, we're going to use March 1st as your close date. However, if school does not accept one application, they cannot accept any or enroll any other students for the rest of that year. So if you completely close, let's say you close your open enrollment on March 1st, and then you keep on accepting applications through March and April and May and June and July, and then you start school August 15th, when are you going to close any enrollment? So this would probably be, predominantly for schools that have not filled all their seats. At what point are you going to stop letting kids in? I always recommend that around the 20-day mark, because you're only going to get funded for the 20-day mark, is when you stop. If you're trying to build up a base for years down the road, then probably no longer than the first end of the first quarter, maybe. And that's really deep into the year because you're impacting culture and you're impacting how your teachers are going to build rapport with those students. And just remember, any child who gets into the school, you have to educate. So if a child comes in who's got severe cognitive delays, you have to accept them, right? So that's why I said here, don't, turn someone down and then accept another application later. Right? That would get you in a lot of trouble. So it's just important to have a very clear process after the lottery, right? How long will you continue to accept applications? What does the wait list look like? And how long into the school year will you stop accepting applications? All right, someone said that the audio was cutting out for a minute there on their end. If I missed something, go ahead and, if I'm not clear, go ahead and re-ask a question. So anytime, this time is for you, so go ahead and put your questions up there. So while you are thinking through any questions, let's go through this case study here. So the school's open enrollment period is from January 1st to March 15th. During this period, each application was timestamped and recorded. After March 1st, you, the principal, assume that this procedure is continuing. In May, the school receives a few phone calls regarding a child's number on the wait list from a parent. There are openings in multiple grade levels, and through investigation, it's found that no one has tracked the applications coming in after March. How do you proceed? How do you ensure this never happens again? So, lottery enrollment period ended. You had your lottery. Whoever was in charge of accepting applications, for some reason, decided to stop tracking the applications came in and was just, basically throwing them into a giant folder. So as you're trying to fill seats as the principal or the administrative assistant or whoever it is, you just came to the conclusion that you have no idea who's technically next on the wait list. This does happen. It won't happen to you because you're going to be proactive. But how would you proceed? Go ahead and throw your answers in that chat box. You wonder how a school would get themselves in this situation? But it does certainly happen. I can tell you that this happened to one of the more quality public charter schools in our area. I was really surprised when I was a consultant, and this was the phone call that I got. So it happens to the best. Come on, nobody's got a response for me? Go to the second question. How do you ensure that this doesn't happen? What processes can you think of you can put in place? I know I'm asking you to think 90 days down the road, but you need to be thinking 90 days down the road. Plan your work and work your plan. We've already talked about every application coming in having a timestamp, right? You could switch out the application link, right? Or you could just make sure that your form is still, collecting the time in the day. So, for example, anything accepted March 2nd or later that came through the Google form, you already have a timestamp and you know which ones, are first. Who should be first on what wait list? You need to make sure that your form that you're bringing applications in is easily filtered per grade level. Another thing to remember is if you are just using it all electronically on one form, you need to somehow track where you are on that wait list. I remember working with a school last year. They continued to work in a form, and they had over 1,000 applicants on there, and it was really challenging every time we went in there to see, well, what was the last, person you offered a spot? How are you keeping track of this? Right, so whoever should be in charge of your lottery and your enrollment needs to be a very, very organized person and not have many things on their plate during that time. All right, how about this story? During the summertime, all right, so this is let's say it's summer 2017. You've already done your lottery and you've already got most of your offered spots. The spot comes open in the 5th grade. The office administrator pulls the folder for the wait list and contacts the parent. The parent is very excited and accepts the enrollment spot. In the next couple of hours, it's found that the office administrator called the wrong student. When calling back the original family, it was found that the child lived on another continent and attended a private school. This is the child that you have already let into your school, right? This is the one who was called incorrectly. They live somewhere else. In the last 2 hours, the father had withdrawn that child from that private school on another continent. It's a true story, by the way. And booked a flight for her to arrive in the United States in the next 2 days. How do you proceed? So if you can visualize this, your office administrator is walking over to the filing cabinet where it's got all the wait lists. She pulls the next one eligible for that grade level, pulls the name out, calls, dad's excited, needs to get his child back from wherever she is in some private school somewhere, books a flight for her to come to accept this spot. During that couple of hours, the administrator realizes, oh, I pulled from the wrong list, and realizes that another parent was actually number one on that wait list. So now you've got a dilemma. You've got someone being let in your school who technically wasn't the next person on the wait list, who's got his child coming from on a plane, and then you've got a parent who doesn't know that they should be enrolled in the school, and you've got their piece of paper in their hand. What would you want your administrative assistant to do? How would you address this situation? Again, true story. Throw it up in the chat box. Give me your response. There are no wrong answers here. All right. Great. So one of our participants, Jamie, she said admit those students. Yeah, and I would agree, right? One of the things that we would have to look at here, Jamie, is was the person who called who's from another continent, were they actually number 2 on the wait list, or are they number 6 on the wait list? Either way, you have to do what's right. Right? You've already offered that seat. You can't take it back. And then you've got to offer the seat just for integrity reasons to the person who's number 1 on the wait list. What would be interesting to see if that person was, not number 2 on the wait list, if you got 4 or 5 names in between there, how do you work that through? Very, very challenging. That's what the school ended up doing. They ended up, letting in both kids. They had to do what was right. They had to find a seat. Even though their school was filled, they had to do the right thing. Right? You just want to do the right thing. Accidents happen, and then obviously go back and reflect on that process and figure out, good, oh, here's another one. Next time, have more than one person check the list before the call is made. I love it, right? Trust but verify, verification processes. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's going to be super duper challenging for you to keep all this in order. Make sure you either got a board member or a critical friend, somebody guiding you through and having check and verification processes, especially for those phone calls. Absolutely. Great thoughts, both of you. Thank you for participating there. I love it. All right. True stories, by the way. I'm not making these up. I wish I could. All right, one more, and then we're going to move on. The Latino family that is living in North Carolina, but the children live in Mexico, submitted a timely and complete application. The residence status of this family is in question. How do you proceed? What policies are in place for you to back up your decision? So again, a family applied to your school. So a family being the mom and the dad, or just a mom or just a dad, living in North Carolina. Their children currently live in Mexico, but their legal guardian lives in North Carolina. They apply to your school. How do you proceed here? What will the process be? What policies do you have in place? Blow up my chat box with more great ideas. Come on, put them in there. So here's a question that says, where will the children be when the school year starts? Well, they've only applied at this point. Let's just say that they're just applying to be at your school. So where will the children be, I guess, would determine whether or not their name is pulled if you allow them in the lottery. I'm just asking, are they eligible or not for your lottery? Perfect. Same as a child in private school out of the country. Yes, they are. Absolutely. And the key here is because they submitted a timely and complete application. And one of the legal guardians, or both, live in North Carolina. So technically, that is their domicile, right? That is their main residence. Just, because the children live out of state or out of the country does not mean that they are not eligible, right? It goes back to being domiciled. So the key that you want in your policy is just basically that to be eligible, you have to be of school age and domicile and have a current domicile in North Carolina. I remember many times being the Office of Charter Schools, schools would call and say, hey, I got a family who is trying to buy a house. Where do they live right now? They live in New York. Do they own a home in North Carolina? No. Then they would not be eligible, right? They need a North Carolina address, and you can certainly ask them for a verification with like a utilities bill, all right? Something to that effect. You get their mailing address, and you say, hey, just for a verification process, can you please provide us, a copy of a water bill or something to that effect. You can certainly get those verification processes. You just don't want to make it so challenging it looks like you're if you pick and choose who you ask that question to, you don't want others to think that you're segregating. So let's talk about the lottery. Okay, lotteries are conducted in many, many different ways. Great question actually came in. It says, what about if you're military and have orders to move here on a certain date? Technically, it would be the same piece. They would need to have a North Carolina domiciled residence, right? So if they had one during that time, they could always ask their, military base to, provide them that time and space, or not that time and space, that physical address of where they will be. But to be consistent, right? Policies are built to take the human factor out of it. So you need policies that will create a consistent process for you, because if you try to take each one of these one by one, you're going to pull all your hair out, and that's why I don't have any hair. It was all because of admissions in charter schools. So no, so you just want clarity. If they don't live in there, but they are scheduled to be there after your open enrollment, say as soon as you get into North Carolina and have your residence, apply for our school, and you'll get your name on that wait list as soon as possible. All right. And I will tell you from our research since 2012, on average, new charter schools are only filling 76% of their seats. So you want to get as big as a wait list as possible in year one, because folks say that they're going to come, but it's really about building that trust once you can get there. And I guess 25% of the folks are not actually filling seats. So the key is that the process should be approved by the board and crafted with core values. And why is the process more important? It's more than just compliance. It's the first true connecting opportunity to the family that you are building trust with. You're going to say, take that leap with me, jump and come with me, right? It gives you. I did a leadership lesson last year on Dr. Martin Luther King Day called "The 5 Lessons I Learned About Leadership," and I was just reading it. And I go, gosh, this is the same opportunities that you have at your lottery, right? You get to listen. You get to listen to how excited the people are to be a part of your school, right? So you get to listen to their stories. You get to better understand them. You get to communicate, to connect with them. You get to the opportunity to persuade to come to our school, show them how great you are as a human being and how great your team is and how you're going to craft a culture that cares for their child's well-being. You get an opportunity to form partnerships and touch the heart, right? And touch their hearts. That's how you bring them in, right? Make a commitment, right? You build hope. You keep a commitment, and you build trust. That's critical. It's critical. And the lottery is your first opportunity to really show them how great you're going to be because you have all these great verification processes. You crossed every T and dotted every I. So here's some lottery applications again with some parts for recommended is making it accessible in multiple formats, following your marketing plan. So if you're trying to attract a certain group of students, certain demographic, then make sure you market in that demographic. Focus on being open and transparent. I would give an outline or flow chart regarding how the process works. So like a parent has a better understanding of kind of how the flow will be. This is probably more important in year 2 and beyond if you've got a bunch of preferences compared to year 1. They just definitely want to know, number one, am I in? And if I'm not in, like, how does the wait list work? And who do I call to see where my kid is on the wait list? You want to make sure that on your lottery application that you ask questions regarding siblings. All right, so the only siblings you have to worry about in year 1 are multiple birth siblings, okay? But down the road, you will want your application to ask about other siblings. Now, if you're following the surname sibling preference opportunity, which we'll talk about in a second, then you definitely want to make sure that all of the siblings are noted on that application. Have an information verification statement, very important at the bottom of your charter enrollment or your charter lottery application. Say, I verify that all this information is true. You know why? Because if you're starting with a school that's K2 or K3, I guarantee you're going to have a family or two comes in and says that their kid's a 3rd grader, but really they're like a 5th grader. Happens every year. You got to make sure that they verify the process, and a parent doesn't have the right to change the grade of their kid. Only if that child's been homeschooled, but there's still processes for that too. Okay. Use best practice examples, and that's going to see other ones. Go watch other schools do their lotteries prior to you doing it. You have to watch and practice. And it should be signed by a legal parent or guardian. What's things that are not recommended? Don't limit the access to the application. Don't limit your marketing open enrollment. Don't ask questions regarding race, gender. Only if you're a single gender school now you could. And religion. Don't ask about academic status, disabilities, interests. Have them write write essays or previous transcripts. The only piece that you could ask now is about if you had a weighted lottery for economically disadvantaged. You could have a question about that on there. And again, hosting a lottery is a great marketing opportunity, even if you don't have enough applications. Celebrate with the families who chose to go to the school that you lead. So sibling preference allowed for year 1? No, there is no sibling preference in year 1 because you don't have any siblings are already enrolled. So the only siblings that you would have from a lottery perspective would be a multiple birth. So that's twins and triplets. They all count as one application. If you pull that application, all multiple birth siblings get in. We're going to talk about the difference between multiple birth siblings and surname siblings here in a second, I think. Lottery. Go observe another school. I've already talked about this. It should be open to the public, fair and consistent. I'm telling you, you got to practice, especially if you're using some sort of like electronic program like random.org. Just practice that, piece and make sure that it, follows all your preferences and what you're trying to get done. All right. Nothing we had I know the one of the charters, the charter that I'm on the board now, they had to cancel their lottery because they didn't practice the randomizing program ahead of time. And when they were trying to run it, it wasn't working correctly. They had to cancel the whole lottery. So just practice. Okay? Get someone competent to run that for you. Make sure you continue the lottery until all names are pulled. There are some charter schools that probably only pull like the first 50 names. In the community school of Davidson only pulls the first 50 names, I think, after the actual lottery because they get about 4,000 applications. They would be there forever. But in year one, I would definitely pull all the names because you'll probably plow through that wait list. Provide a detailed policy and process to the public, talking about the preferences, how many spots you held, for those employees and those board members' kids, the number of openings per grade. Okay, and I'll show you an example of that chart here in a second. Waitlist procedures, being clear and consistent. Don't hold a closed lottery. For some reason, lots of schools, not lots, a few that I know hold a closed lottery. It makes no sense. Don't change your plan after the policies have been approved and the applications are submitted or you've drawn names. Just if there's a mistake somewhere, just continue with it, and once the whole process is done, then go back and clean up your policies. Okay, just follow what you had in play and make the best out of it for your stakeholders. Don't hold separate lotteries for the open enrollment list and then a wait list. It doesn't make any sense to have. I had a school a couple of years ago. They had their open enrollment lottery, and then they started over again, and then they took another 60-day period and collected all those, and then they had another lottery to put everybody in order for the wait list. Didn't make any sense to me. You should just, it comes in, they're just next on the wait list. Okay. Here's that chart I was talking about. So here's an example. If you're K-5 in the first year, your first row should be the total grade level openings. Okay, you're not going to have any returning students, obviously, because your school wasn't open last year. Now, the number of enrolled due to preferences, right? So these preferences could be your employees that you already know about, okay, and board members' kids, right? Here's the reserved openings for a surname sibling, okay? So this could be that, hey, I'm using the surname sibling preference, and this is going to be confusing maybe at first, but the more that you think through it, it's pretty clear. So a surname sibling preference is this. I have one name, Miller. I have 3 kids. I have a kindergartner, 3rd grader, 5th grader, let's just say. All 3 of them are applying under one name. You as the school will decide what grade level the surname siblings, will be. So let's just say that in, policy or process, you say surname siblings will always be decided by the youngest grade level, right? So if I've got a K, 3, and 5, they all go under the kindergartner's name. If I've got a 2nd and a 3rd grader, it goes under the 2nd grader's name. When you're in the lottery, if you pull that name, okay, if I pull that name during the kindergarten lottery, I say, great, the kindergartner, they are spot number 48, so they're in. And the 3rd grader is spot number 7, so they're in. And the 5th grader is spot number 2, so they're in. It could be that you pull the name and the kindergartner gets in, but there's already no openings in 3rd grade. So that 3rd grader goes to the wait list, and the 5th grader maybe gets in. This will be down the road. Probably not going to have this problem this year until you get to maybe like the end of your lottery. Another piece to think about, and a school had a tough time with this, might be one of our case studies, is that the system that they set up, they did surname sibling, but they did all of their kindergarten applicants first, and they had like 80 openings in kindergarten, but they had 700 applications. So the way the computer did it is it pulled every single name in kindergarten all the way up to 700. And what it did is it put the kindergarten kids on wait list, but if they had a sibling, it took those kids and it dropped them into that they're in. So by the time that the 1st through 5th grade lottery occurred, there was no openings in the surname sibling, right? So you have to, so if the surname sibling gets in on the wait list, everybody's on the wait list. Or you just have to figure out how that's going to work. All right, so you have to figure out how you'll do surname sibling if a kid gets pulled, if the main surname gets pulled on the wait list. Okay. Your next row, I'm in the possible number of lottery openings, and you'll see that because I've got 50 total grade level openings. I had 2 or 16 enrolled to preferences, and 2 spots that I'm reserving for potential surname sibling. So that gives me 34 openings. Okay. So you see, and then I got the number of applications. So there's 55 applications for 34 spots. I definitely need a lottery. Now in first grade, I got 43 applications for 49 spots. I don't need a lottery, so all those kids are going to get in. I highly recommend that you reserve, between probably about 5% of your grade level potential openings for your employee and board member preferences and multiple birth. I mean, anything that could happen. Anything that could happen, just keep that spot open for them. We had a school. I remember talking to the principal about it. I said, hey, I noticed that you filled all your spots. What are you going to do as you continue to hire all your staff and then they have kids? They said, I don't know. We didn't think about it. So they had to deal with it eventually. Either they had to say, I'm sorry, your kids can't come in this year, and then you have the threat of losing a really good staff member because the kids can't come because they're on the wait list. So the process could, fluctuate from trying to pull from a hat or a fishbowl. Some use the random selection organizers, the computer programs. Just make sure it's clear. A lot of schools put it up on the big screen, and every child has a number, so the parent knows what that number is. And they pull it and they see their number. Some use like a bingo rolling cart, like the bingo cages. Some use initials to identify. Some use numbers to identify kids. Whatever form it is, just be very conscious of FERPA, especially if you're maybe the first charter school in a county, or there's maybe that you're like in a county that doesn't really love charter schools. I remember back in the day, Magellan Charter, a lot of the parents who actually worked in Wake County schools applied for Magellan, and there was a big issue because the school system apparently gave some slack to those folks, or flack to them because their kids applied and they were clear as day on the up there. Just want to be conscious, and be smart. Try to think through the unintended consequences that could happen. For example, you see woven baskets. There was a parent who called the Office of Charter Schools complaining because that the school that they did a lottery used a basket that was woven through like a weave basket, like a wicker basket. And the complaint was that the way that the pieces of paper were folded, his child didn't get pulled because they were stuck at the bottom, right? The way that the basket had all the parts. Folks are going to complain. So you just have to think through the unintended consequences of what may and could happen. Whatever method you use, it's a local decision. Just be open and transparent and take the time to practice. So your process should have a clear separation of duties. So maybe a person to draw. We used to use, when I was a principal, we used to use the local sheriff. He would come and he would be the person drawing all the names, right? Completely, third party individual. Then we had a person to announce it. So the sheriff would pull the name, he would hand it to someone to announce, and then there was a person to their left who would record it, right? And they would, ensure that all the lottery preferences are noted, and they had this big chart and everything in front of them. And then there was another person after them to verify that they did it correctly. Once that was done, then they went to the next name. Okay? You need trust but verification processes in there. The more levels of that you have, the more internal controls, the less likely you're going to have errors, right? The more people are going to catch things that happen, and the less likely folks are going to complain because you have a very clear process. Okay, so again, let's talk through these multiple birth siblings and a surname sibling preference here. So multiple birth is a shall. You have to do this. Surname sibling is a may. You don't have to use surname sibling. Everybody could just be their own applicant. Okay. So the multiple birth is one surname in the lottery represents all the multiple births. If the children are in split grades, so let's say that you have twins and one's in kindergarten and one's in first grade, just, based upon one being a little bit, delayed. Let the parent choose, first of all, which grade level the name's going to be in, K or 1, okay? Either way, if that name is pulled, so for example, if you've got triplets and you're in spot, you got 100 spots and you're pulling the 100th spot, if you pull that triplet name, all 3 kids get in, and now you have 102 kids in kindergarten. Now, different than the surname sibling, which I've already explained once, that they only get in if there's openings in that grade level. Right? So one surname represents all the siblings, right? So this is, when you have multiple siblings in a family in multiple grade levels, okay? And if one name is selected, right, the lottery spot, then all students shall be admitted to the extent that the space is available and does not exceed the grade level capacity. That's really important. It's specifically stated in the law that way. So, for example, if a name's pulled, 3 of the 4 grade levels have openings, they are enrolled, the 4th student is on the wait list. You locally determine how that wait list is created. Remember, all siblings must meet the lawful definition. From my experience, if you choose to utilize the surname sibling preference, I would personally have, this is just my personal preference, I would have 1 blanket lottery for all grades and basically filling all spots until everything's full. So instead of having the kindergarten lottery, then the first grade lottery, then the second grade lottery, I would just do the entire school one at a time. Everybody's name, everybody's surname is in one giant basket. And you're pulling one at a time, and you're filling it like Connect 4, right? You're basically just, filling in all the spots. That's just the way I would do it. There's other schools you could reach out to that I have some examples in here. And I would have all siblings in either the grade level of the youngest applicant or the oldest applicant, whatever it is. So I would, and you guys choose that. Don't go to every parent for the surname sibling preference and ask them, hey, what grade level do you want this lottery to be in? You just make it a blanket across the board. Youngest or oldest. Just make it simple. Keep it simple. And I would definitely reach out for any schools in your area, 1 or 2, find out where the lottery is, 5, what process did they choose, what did they learn, what would they do differently. All right, so now we're post-lottery process. Again, open and transparent. If you messed up, own it and do the right thing. Ensure the results are accessible to the parents. Nothing makes mom and dads more angry than, it takes a week to, post everything. So find a way to post it. Put it on your website. You can put it up on the wall at the school based upon their numbers or their initials, however you want to choose to do it. You should have a clear policy in regards to how long the parent has to determine to accept the offer of enrollment. So if my lottery is on March 1st and I notify a parent on March 3rd, and I do that by sending them the enrollment packet and say, just as you have 14 days or 10 business days, whatever you choose, and you just choose that locally, to complete this and turn this back in. If you do not turn it back in by the time, we will withdraw our offer, and your child will go to, they could go to the end of the wait list, right? Start of the wait list, whatever you choose for them to go to. Just have a very clear process for that. Again, probably won't have to deal with it a lot because not all, charter schools fill their spots in year 1. The policy should address any extenuating circumstances, I don't know, if the parents went out of town, I don't know. People are going to come up with excuses. Just be very clear from the forefront, how long do you have to fill this out? It's also important that they realize that they will be filling out information to request information from the current school that they're in, but let them know you won't do that until the end of the school year. They're just giving permission for you to request. And the policy should address any non-responsive families, right? I've already talked about it. So do your diligence in terms of, I've notified them, I've called them, We sent a letter to them. We sent an email to them, right? We gave them 1 week and no response. I take them off the offer of enrollment list and I put them back on the wait list. And I, document all the times I try to contact. When you're doing your lottery, practice, practice, practice. Practice everything. Practice from the application coming in, right? So go through this processes now, learn more, to how are we going to bring this information to make sure all of our kids who have applied are somehow in the lottery. How are we verifying that they're all in the lottery? Practice actually going through the lottery. Practice announcing who got in, how you're going to put the process in, right? Practice how you're going to offer enrollment. Practice how you're going to continue to accept applications after the open enrollment period ends, and where they're going to go. Just keep on practicing. So just some questions for you to think through and go through over the next week. Does your admissions policy currently meet the law? It should. I'm pretty sure the Office of Charge would have caught it by now, hopefully. How will you educate your stakeholders on the school's lottery process? Are you going to have an open session? You could create a webinar. You could do all sorts of things. You could put it on your website, find ways to actually teach them. What order will the students eligible for these preferences be, on the wait list too? Because here's another thing to think about is after year 1, you'll probably have 2 wait lists. You'll have a sibling wait list and you'll have your general wait list. And the sibling, wait list may be that, you had the siblings apply, but there wasn't any openings, so they had a preference, so maybe they're on the wait list first. So just always be thinking about, there's always going to be something that you have to have a process for. What procedures in place to document applications received after the open enrollment? What process in place when calling students from the wait list? Does a lot of application ask questions that could be perceived as barriers? We have a clear process in regards to appeals or errors that occur during the lottery. Okay. Just don't put your head in the sand. Just admit to errors, fix them with integrity. Always important. Be open and transparent. Failure is not a person. It's an event. It may happen. All right, so what are your thoughts? We got a couple more case studies, then we're going to finish up here. School receives 536 applications for 300 openings in their first year. School board holds multiple mock lotteries and asks the town's mayor to draw each name. The lottery occurs for grades K-5. At the completion of the lottery, a parent walks up to the board chair and asks where their child is on the wait list. She claims that she sat there the entire time and did not hear her son's name called. As the board chair, you look to see where the name is, and you're not able to find the name either. The parent shows you the confirmation email noting the application was completed and timely. How would you proceed? So maybe not the board chair, but maybe you're the principal. Sat through the entire lottery, very excited for her child to be in. And there are no evidences that their child was in the lottery. How would you proceed? What would you do? Fill that chat box up. Come on, give me your best idea. The other question should be, how would you make sure everybody's in there? I think I've already asked that, but very important to make sure. How do we know that every applicant is in the lottery? Well, what are your choices, right? So your choices are to let the parent know that you will investigate, right? You want to find out what grade level the child is and kind of take a look at it. What if you decide to redo the lottery, are you going to have to do the entire lottery again or just one grade level? So maybe you only have to do one grade level. You definitely want to communicate to this parent, I have received your complaint. We are going to do an internal investigation, and someone will be in communication with you in 3 days. Right? Then you have to think through, gosh, we missed this. So then we have to notify all the parents in whatever grade level to say, hey, we're going to have to redo the lottery. There was a name left out. You definitely want to apologize for their inconvenience. I hope that they understand that if their child was left out of the lottery, they would give this opportunity to them. Right? You fall on the grenade, and you move forward. Right? This is the last one, I promise. A new charter school that's opening for grades K to 6 received over 2,000 applicants for 5 or 60 openings. For the first 9 weeks of the school, the 6th grade team questions a child's grade level placement. In looking at the cumulative folder, it's found that this student who is entitled with a specific learning disability is 15 years old and has been homeschooled the past 3 years. He's struggling academically and socially in the school. In November, a formal evaluation is conducted, and the student's overall IQ is found to be at 46. In looking through past school records, it is found that the student was promoted to 7th grade 2 years ago by a local school system. How do you proceed? This could very well happen. I actually watched it happen this year to a charter school. So a parent applied for that last grade level, says their kid was homeschooled. Nothing really came about until 9 weeks. The teacher started really questioning this. You as a principal, it just came down the pike to you because you've been busy handling other things. What would you do? What does the law allow you to do? Child is enrolled at your school. You're legally obligated to teach that child, and you have been. But one great piece, the only pretty much rule that we have as principals left, is we have the ability to grade and place kids. So using this most current information, you have an IP meeting, and it is determined that the child, based upon his age and cognitive ability, should be in whatever 7th or 8th grade. Seeing that, this child is not eligible for your school because you only offered to 5th grade. So you could place this child in 8th grade, find a transition school for them, and host a transition meeting to have this student. You don't need the parents' permission, ultimately, to change the child's grade level. You certainly would like it. And as you're doing this, I would definitely make sure that you keep, your legal counsel and the Exceptional Children's Department of DPI kind of in check with you. Just make sure you're going through the right processes to get to this point. This is very, very touchy. Obviously, the parent wants what's best for their kid. You too also need what's best for the kid as he's approaching transitional age. He's being 16. He or she has the right, to be part of their own decision processes. So this could happen. All right. These are all true stories. I didn't make any of them up, I promise. So just be really, really prepared for some of these things, right? Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. All right. Last little questions. So your enrollment process, when you're there, okay, when you get to that point, you should have all this documentation now. If you don't, reach out to a local school, get some copies of their enrollment, folders so you can start thinking through what is required for me to ask. What's the timeline that I need this information back by? How will we be collecting it, right? Will there be someone at a desk? Some of you don't have a school yet, right? What's the office building? Are they mailing them? Do you have a P.O. box? How are you getting this information back in? Who will be overseeing this process? Who's in charge of watching the wait list? What's the process for new applications after? And how long will you accept applications, right? Until what date? September 1st? October 1st? And here's something just popped in my head. Wait, hopefully, oh yeah. Do you have a fax machine? Because when you're trying to get information from local school systems, they're going to require that you're faxing over requests. It's pretty comical. But yeah, so just make sure if your local school systems require, faxes, that you've got a fax machine or access to a fax machine so you can request that information to get students' records. Be completely prepared to have maybe 50% of your student records on the first day of school. So just be prepared. Be prepared for a constant battle and a constant fight to get cumulative folders. Start making those relationships now with those local schools, finding a way, because when you're trying to collect all the information, they're on summer break. They're on summer break. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for this little over an hour we went, learning about this really, really critical process. I hope that you all have a lottery for every grade level. That'll be fantastic. And I hope that you do not, become the next stories. But if you do become the next story, it's okay. All right? Just figure it out, process it, get a thinking partner, make the best decision for the child and your organization. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at tom@leadersbuildingleaders.com. And again, I thank you for your time, and in the next 24 hours, I should send you a copy of this recording and some of the other items that I promised. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out. Thanks again, everyone, for your time.